Welcome to Sub Rosa. We're glad you joined us.
Yeah.
So
Secret.
what are we going to talk about today?
Well, I got a guy who is a Trump voter, MAGA guy, works at a company that rhymes with Dougal, and he's got questions. He's made it through multiple layers of layoffs, but they're now going granular. And at the beginning of COVID, of course, he had a lot of stuff on his Facebook page about how COVID was fake and how Fauci was out of pocket, and I mean stuff that hews to his political preferences. But he's wondering now that people are making hard decisions, 360 style, in order to keep his employment. And it rubs him the wrong way to have to do this. Should he flush his viewable social media of anything that might, and it really rubs him the wrong way. It has, especially given that he's an engineer. It's got nothing to do with how well he does his job, but he's paranoid about running afoul of the powers that be, in this instance, air quotes. So his question is, I mean, in a casual way, what do you think, Eugene? Should we, is that some? Can I live with myself flushing this in order to keep my job, or just let the chips fall where they may? And in other words, if I'm representing unpleasant views in my own life that don't jive with the body that I'm now, affianced to, should I change just for the sake of keeping my job? And what kind of person does that make me? And I was like, oh, that's kind of cute and darkly philosophical. And we will talk about it on Sub Rosa, because that's what this is for. So
Interesting. I mean, I guess my first thought is, how badly does he need the job?
he's 47 years old, has a special needs kid, and a wife that doesn't work.
So his wife presumably doesn't work outside the home. Thank you very much.
Yes, correct.
So I would suggest,
according to him, he doesn't work too much in the house either. But
okay,
I don't want to get
that's
personal.
right.
Right.
I mean, I think that if I'm sure that's a good job. I'm sure it has good benefits. I think that the idea of being silent on places that are readily accessible by people that employ you is probably a good idea, regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, right? I mean, for people that are living in, very, very conservative parts of the world and they're very liberal, I would probably give them the same advice. If you need the job, be still on Facebook, right? And let's remember, social media is not political action, right? Like, you can do really substantive political action that you never have to broadcast, right? So I think that if you believe strongly in a political, activity or a particular candidate or party, then go work for that candidate or party in a substantive way that is going to assist them, and just be quiet about it on social media. So that would be my suggestion, is that if you need the job, it's worth it to pull down your social media performances. And if you really are committed to some sort of political action, then participate in the democratic process.
It's interesting. That's the exact opposite of the information I gave him. But I didn't give him I didn't give him honest information, because he happened to slip and let me know. He said, I've never been fired or laid off. I went to the Navy, got out of the Navy, and I have a steady record of employment since getting out of the Navy that doesn't include any unemployment periods, any downtime, constantly employed, never laid off, never fired. So I was like, it's about time for this guy. I said, you go in there. You go in there and you let them know who's boss. And of course, he disregarded my information completely, which is why I presented it to you. And I think that's probably what he intends to do. It rubs him the wrong way, and I couldn't sell it any better. But I think you just did.
Well, and I think the challenge is that, I think there's a difference between political activity and what it is that you say on social media. Right. So like, there was a really cool, there's a woman that I follow on social media called Emily in Your Phone. And she does a lot of suggestions for ways that people can be politically active. And it's always about calling your representatives. right?
Right.
And she will, like surface. There was a great movement suggesting, don't give me flowers, call your
Mhm.
representative and try to get some gun control
Mhm.
um, through the Congress, because now gun violence is the number one
Yep.
cause of death for children in the United States, right?
Yep.
Only in the
Yep.
United States, nowhere else in the world.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so there's a lot of things that people can do to make a difference in their community or to participate in the system without necessarily having to perform it on social media. And I think the challenge is, like depending on who you're working for, everything, as we know, is so polarized, right? So if I were to walk into a workplace in, you know, Texas, let's say, right, or some conservative area, I would probably keep quiet about what I do, who I
Mhm.
am, who
Mhm.
like there's a lot of different things that I wouldn't say.
Mhm.
And I don't necessarily feel like um, that would be hard for me. But I think this is a generational difference, right? So I didn't grow up with an idea that work was a place I should be able to show up authentically.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
grew up understanding that you showed up at work and they gave you money
Mhm.
and you had to be careful. It was a job. It wasn't like school, it wasn't like community activities, it wasn't my family. It was a play, and probably because I started out, as a waitress, and I was sexually
Mhm.
harassed from the minute I started the job, right? I mean, like
Mhm.
physically
Mhm.
harassed, like
Yeah.
bosses touching my breasts, right? So I
Yeah.
never had a sense of work as being a safe space. And
Mhm.
I think that's a great goal, but I'm always sort of bemused with younger people who feel like they should be able to show up authentically at work and be safe,
Mhm.
because I never have showed up authentically at work because I've
But you
never felt like I'm safe.
that's interesting because I have to say there was pre-internet and post-internet. And pre-internet, I felt fairly emboldened. People would say, "What are you doing this weekend?" I go, gardening." They say, "Where were you this weekend?" I go, "Dublin." They go, "Oh, East Bay. I heard it was hot this weekend." No, I was in Dublin, but I could just get away with saying Dublin, Ireland. I could just get away with saying Dublin and the people in the Bay Area. So I had a good deal of invisibility. Post internet, all that stuff goes away. And then I'm in a position where suddenly I'm called into account to answer for why is that article about you choking people on stage? Why is that like a thing? Now are you gonna do this in the works? Oh no, this is stage show. I'm in a band. Oh, you're in a band. So now you're in a band, you come to work tired on Monday, they think, he's probably tied one over the weekend. So I have the experience of, of just being a guy and then having to be Clark Kent and then that everything being revealed. But I tell you something that you don't know, which is pretty interesting. It just happened. I happened to see on the road at 6:20, maybe Thursday morning of last week. I happened to see the disgraced CEO, former CEO of Ozzy, on the road, driving by me 10 feet away. And first, I noticed the car because I remember his car, and then I see the sweatshirt. And this is in the New York Times. You can Google the guy's name, Carlos Watson. I see the sweatshirt that I recognize, having seen him wear it many a time in the office, and I look up and I see it's him. And I go, "Whoa, and I look at what's he doing up this early, first of all, and I look and I see his license plate that used to say OZY.com has now been changed. And I've been thinking about it ever since because despite, the federal investigation, the Department of Justice, his arrest, his upcoming trial, it never would have dawned on me to try to conceal ownership of who it is that I was by changing my license plate. I just would have left it Ozzy.com, but he changed his license plate for whatever reason. So yeah,
Well, the federal
maybe
indictments could be kind of a clue as to the reason.
yeah, but it's your car. What is the people going to say? Oh, Ozzy.com, that's the guy who's federally indicted. I mean, any more or less in his face? I just, so there's a certain need to hide always, but at the same time, I still have a strong feeling about, um, well, no, I don't have a strong feeling about it. The reality of it is it's impossible for me to hide. So
Right.
I've had to make my peace with it.
But you also have, lots of pictures on the internet of you without your pants on a stage.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. It's impossible for me to hide. So it's not like I do that stuff in the workplace, but
Right.
the person who's looking for an excuse to not give you a job has now found it. So
Although I think it's interesting. I was talking to somebody who kind of hinted at the fact that when we post cut downs of the Bad Boss Brief on LinkedIn, they
mhm.
don't get reshared very often. Right.
Yeah,
And the reason
there's
I
a
was
reason for
told,
that.
Yeah, there is a reason for that, which is, and I don't think it's that occasionally we say cuss words or we whatever. It's because we're talking about the fact that capitalism is bad, that many bosses are terrible, that sexism and ageism is in the workplace, and people are afraid to share that because they're afraid their boss is going to read it and think, "Wait, do they think that I'm whatever?"
Of
And it's
course.
interesting. So it's like that's kind of what's happening right now, even
Yep.
with us. And I feel like, okay, fine, we'll fly that flag. It's good. The
Yep.
people that want to
Yep.
hear us all,
Yep.
scoot
Yep.
over to Substack and join us at the hearth as we burn whatever it is that we're burning to the ground. So,
Well,
all right,
so
yeah.
benefit to being the ages that we are. It's like at this point now, what are you gonna do to me? What are you gonna do? You gonna beat me up? What are you? What's gonna
Well,
what's the worst? You know?
and I think also, I mean, this is something that people talk about and they joke about, but as a woman who is postmenopausal, I will tell you, it is true that I biologically don't give a fuck anymore. There is something about the ebb of estrogen. I no longer give a fuck whether people like me, whether they hire me, whether they don't. And let me
Right,
tell you,
right.
women who are coming up behind me, it is a blessed relief.
There you go. There you go.
All right, I
Perfect.
think on that note we will end the Sub Rosa. Send us more questions, and we'll be happy to cover them here at WTF at badbossbrief.com. Thank you. Bye.
Adios.